Just give me a second. Yeah, Phil's got a really great bio, and I want to do justice to it, so I'm actually just going to read it. Phyl Macomber is an award-winning keynote speaker, author, and education specialist. She's consulted with and trained thousands of teaching staff around the world. She's created a simple 4-step system for how to teach anything to anyone called The Pact, which is outlined in Phil's first book, The Power of the Pact. Since the framework's inception in 2009, her research-based teaching strategies have been published in numerous articles, featured in education publications, and the Pact is being successfully used across North America, both in the United States and Canada, and also in parts of Australia, England, Italy, Saudi Arabia, and various countries in Africa, including South Africa, because Phyl is on the board of Leave No Girl Behind International. And we have been so blessed to work with her, and one of our programs is according to the PACT system. She has taught our girls, and what Phyl does is amazing. So welcome, Phyl.
Thank you. I feel so blessed to be here, and also to just roll up my sleeves and help both you and Shamima with your vision of how to help girls globally, because I so respect your work. So it's a true pleasure to be here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Phyl. Well, it's an honor to have you, and let's get into the atmosphere of what this is all about, that we all have something unique to contribute. And I love how you bring that forth in your work, because, you know, I am, as you know, a very free-spirited person, and not very linear. And I don't adopt structure that much, but you're the one who taught me that, well, if something works for you, the way you're doing it is right for you, even if other people are saying it's wrong according to them. So I go according to what may look mixed up to everyone else, according to how I learn or take notes or whatever. And I want to thank you for that, because that's just about being uniquely you, claiming yourself. So I know that as children, we already have the guidance to our purpose and to what matters. And then those things get forgotten. As I said, things get educated out of us. But what can we do to reach that part of self and reconnect to those things that we have forgotten or that got pushed aside sometime between childhood and adulthood?
You know, I think, at least in my own journey, it was helpful for me to give myself the permission to be me. Because sometimes we feel we need to be based on a certain job we have, or a goal that we want to work toward. We feel we have to mold ourselves in a certain way. That doesn't work. We need to identify who we uniquely are. And one exercise that I myself have gone through with the guidance of some of my mentors has been finding what they call the river that runs through you. What is it truly in your life that has you exactly where you are today and help bring you to where you want to be tomorrow? And as part of that journey, I have customized that a little bit in terms of finding your stories. It's all about your stories, and they can start at a very young age. May I share one, Hasina?
Yes, I would love you to share your story.
When I went through this exercise, and I would love for our listeners to think about this and reflect as I'm sharing one of my stories, is in your timeline, or for example, Hasina had said she's not linear, so it could be in your concept math or web, whatever works for you. Think back to a time at a very young age where you were you, and it stopped your family in their tracks, so to speak. Mine was when I was adopted at 7 weeks old from St. Joseph's Orphanage. And I was very lucky to grow up, as you know, Hasina, with an abundance of love in a very large Italian family. And, you know, when you grow up in an Italian family, your parents just don't raise you. You know, you have your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your siblings are like or your cousins are like siblings to you. And so I realized at a very young age that not every kid was as lucky as me. I always had a true sense of belonging in my family, and also a voice in my family. And so when I was a little girl, I hung out a lot in my grandfather and uncle's Italian barbershop. And they had these little punch games that you could play and win prizes. And so imagine how excited I was at 4 years old when I won something to go to the Sweetheart Candy Company toy store. So my grandmother, Nana Philly, after whom I'm named, Philomena, and my mom brought me to get a new dolly. And so I'm standing there, and it almost looked like a carnival, like there was a shelf and then all these shelves of beautiful, beautiful dolls. And my Nana looked down at me and she said, Philly, which doll do you want to bring home? And I looked and looked. And then I looked in the far corner and I saw this funny looking monkey. And I said, I want that monkey, and his name will be Chico. And my grandmother's like, honey, you could have any beautiful doll in this toy store. What do you want that funny looking monkey for? And I looked up at her and my mother and said, Chico may not be as lucky as me in life. I want to give him a home and adopt him like you adopted me.
Oh,
They started crying. This man behind the counter started crying. And my grandmother looks in her little bossy Italian voice and says, get her the monkey. So the reason I'm sharing this is that this is the river that runs through me. I want every child in education to have a great sense of belonging in their classroom, in their family, in their community. I want them to not only be valued, but I want them to add value. So it shouldn't surprise you that this is my life's work stemming from my story, right? And it's just interesting. You know, you take a look at who you are as a child, even as you start to develop. You know, I was lucky to go to a very nice school. I guess you'd call it a private school. It was a parochial school, St. Mary's. And we were not a very rich school by any means. In fact, we didn't even have a library. And the little bookmobile used to drive around with all the books once a month, and we could get books. And when I was in 4th grade, I loved to read. And I just said, well, why don't we have a library at our school? And so I went down to the principal's office, Sister Paulette, and I said, why don't we have a library, Sister Paulette? And she explained that we didn't really have a lot of money at our school and we didn't have a place to put it. And I said, well, all of us love to read, and reading is so important. And we only get to get books once a month from the bookmobile. And so as I was walking down the hall, I went into Mrs. Procaram's nurse's office, pretending I was sick, because determined is another word to describe who I am. And I'm sitting there and she's like, oh, you have a tummy ache. And so I'm, you know, telling a little Pinocchio tale that I didn't feel well. And I said, do you need all this room in here, Mrs. Procaram, in your nurse's office? One thing led to another. And when I left that nurse's office, Mrs. Procaram said we could put a few bookshelves in a corner of her nurse's office to start a library. So I walked down back to Sister Paulette's office and I told her, I said, Mrs. Percarum said that we could have a library in there. She said, Philly, we do not have any money to buy books. So I looked at her and I said, well, if every kid in the school donated a book and the teachers could donate too, because they have a paycheck, then we could have a library. And so what do you think she said? Focusing on problems. Well, we don't have any bookshelves. So I marched back down the hall and I said, okay, I can't do this myself because I'm going to get in trouble. So I talked to my girlfriends. Angela Kolesar's dad was a carpenter. And she said, I'm going home tonight and seeing if my dad will make us bookshelves. 2 weeks later, we had a library at St. Mary's School, all stemming from the way my parents raised both me and my sister, which was, you can come to us with any problem, honey, but we're only going to focus on that problem for 5 to 10 minutes. The rest of the time, you need to learn to focus on solutions. That's how you're going to grow up to be a strong woman. That's the river that runs through me. And I want all of you to think of those moments. You know, of course, Sister Paulette called my parents saying, you know, Philly has been to my office several times. And I was thinking I was going to get in trouble at home, Hasina. I didn't get in trouble. My father finally said, when are they just going to start listening to her? Because she has really good ideas. Like, that's a wonderful thing for a parent to say to a child. Like, you have a wonderful brain. You know, you need to be respectful and kind, but don't back down.
Oh, that is such a beautiful story. And I love the technique that your parents taught you. And how amazing is it that you grew up and you're in the realms of education, and here you are on this Zoom in 2022, and other people are learning from what your parents taught you about, we're only going to focus on the problem for, what did you say, 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to discuss the solution. So that is such a great technique. Imagine if we could do that as parents, as teachers, as community leaders, you know, and just in our own lives, because it just opens a door of possibility, right?
It does. It's all about the door of possibility. And an exercise that I would love to shout out to people is start doing a word map or a word wall describing who you are. Like, based on the stories that I just told, one of my words that I would describe myself with is empathetic, compassionate, because I want every child to have a sense of belonging and not feel excluded, right? And, you know, another word, persistent, determined, right? Solution oriented. Do this with yourself, and you're going to really start to figure out uniquely you. Because people want to hear your story. I mean, my story is no more special than your story. It just happens to be that I identified through the series of going through a real good self-examination and what I used to call as a kid being fess up honest with yourself about really who you are. And once you start embracing that, as opposed to swimming upstream, the ripple effect is unbelievable.
Oh, that is so true. And for, you know, those of you who read the emails, you would have seen that bring a pen and journal or bring a poster board, which I forgot to mention at the beginning. But if you have, even if you just have a piece of paper, and you can always do it in a way that you feel like later, that exercise right now. So Phil, I know you gave them an example about, you know, I'm determined, I'm, you know, whatever, and you just put the words around, and also maybe just put keywords to a story that you remember. That's
a great idea.
Yeah. And I see, Sade, you said it's a beautiful idea. What a beautiful idea in the chat. And yeah, Sade is in education. I mean, if teachers do this exercise with their students. This is so great.
It would be so great to do this with your students. I actually, when I start working with educators, I now start having them do this because I need to know who they are. I need to know what their belief system is in a way that I could best help them further their potential. Not change them, but take who they are and elevate it, because everyone is uniquely different, right? And I do think it's a great idea to do this with kids. I also love, because I'm such a visual person, I love putting pictures of myself in the middle of that word map and or poster, whatever you would like to call it, or you could have kids draw themselves as well. But like, so for example, I would put a picture of Chico on mine because that is in my uniquely you timeline. And, you know, also I grew up with my cousin Pam, who has developmental disability and intellectual disability. Back then it was called mental retardation. Pictures of Pam would be in my timeline because I'm an advocate for children with disabilities. Well, it's not a surprise because I grew up with so close with my cousin Pam. And quite candidly, it took me quite some time before I realized she had a disability. My dad and mom were big believers in talk to kids as grown-ups. Kids are smarter than you think, right? And you know, he told me very early on, Hasina, about Pam having mental retardation. This was back in like the mid 60s. And he said, so everyone is different, honey. And you are going to teach Pam some things, and Pam's going to teach you some things. And boy, was that true in my own life.
Oh, that is beautiful. And that's probably where the beginnings of living life on your own terms came from. So before I ask you the next question, something occurred to me. I'm really curious. Do you still have Chico?
I do. And if I was in my home office, he'd be right behind me on my bookshelf.
Phil, you have to take a picture, please, if you don't mind. And then when I send out an email with the recording of this, when Shamima and I do that, if you don't mind, maybe we could share the picture of Chico.
I would love to share the picture of Chico. He was my best friend. He went everywhere with me. And truly, he was very different looking. He had little plastic hands and little plastic face and plastic white shoes. And he's pretty tattered, but it's because he was loved. That's what I say.
So, moving from what you just said, you know, and getting to live life on your own terms and bringing in what you learned as a child, everyone here, you know, has either had a child in their life somehow, is maybe an educator in some form or of another, but basically we in some form or another, we deal with children. And many people put the children in their lives first. So how does claiming yourself and feeding your soul, like feeding your soul first, make you a better parent, a better leader, just a better educator for children? Because I know a lot of people do that, and I'd just like to hear your viewpoint on it.
Well, I think that anytime we do anything in the presence of a child, when we say something or we do something, that meaning perform some type of action of some sort, we are telling that child, whether you realize it or not, this is how you could be. Now, there's a positive to that and there's a negative to that. I'm going to tell you a story about yesterday morning, literally yesterday morning. My husband and I were out of town, as you know. I was on a little getaway with my husband, Rob. We were at the seacoast and we're checking out of our hotel. And I'm standing in the Starbucks line that was in the hotel because I wanted to get a cup of tea. There was this family in front of us. It was a grandmother a father, and a little boy who probably was in like second or third grade. And the woman asked about decaf coffee and dark roast and so much about coffee. You need a master's degree to even figure it out these days. And so I'm just standing there and I'm just watching her. And she's starting to raise her voice. I'm talking to the man with 2 dogs behind me because I'm an animal lover. And I'm thinking, this is taking an awfully long time. What's going on? And so I'm like, now I'm starting to listen. And this woman's raising her voice. I cannot believe you do not have decaf coffee, blah, blah, blah. And she's like starting to yell. And the woman behind the counter, you could see she was just getting ready to cry, right? She couldn't even get a word in edgewise. The woman just needed to hear herself talk. The reason I'm telling this story is not to put down this woman, but to illustrate the point that I just made. Because this grandson, all he kept doing was looking up at his grandmother, glued as to how she was interacting and conducted herself with this person. Not a great role model, right? I'm not sure that we want children to treat people that way. And sometimes we're not mindful of that. I think that any child, any one of us as adults, regardless of our age, it's never too late, could have the life that we imagine on our own terms, because at the core of it, it's all about belief, right? And if you believe that something is possible, then it'll be possible. It's not hard. However, it does mean that like wonderful life is not going to just drop into your lap. I work hard at things that I believe in and want to make contributions with, but it doesn't feel like work to me because it's part of who Phyl is, right? You know, my dad used to say, you know, if you love what you do, honey, you never work a day in your life. And I truly feel blessed about that. But I made that happen because I wouldn't take no for an answer. Determined, persistent, right? And you know, so you may not know the roadmap to get there right now, but you need to push aside the doubt and focus on what you want to happen. And then, and I know this would resonate with you, Hasina, knowing you, that quiet your mind. Just let thoughts start popping in and then start thinking of an action plan. Because if all these great ideas do not go into an action plan, guess what? They stay a good idea. Right.
That's the gem, because it's so simple. Well, of course you want to start doing something, but do we really do something about every great idea? And we have so many of them.
Right. Right. And document them. Like I have this, which I'm going to grab right now because it's right next to me. I have this notebook because I know that lots of ideas pop into my head and I'm not really sure that I'm going to remember them all, right? So like I will jot lots of different ideas down in the form of concept maps, drawings, whatever it is. And I have many of these that I have filled, and it's not about filling the notebook. It's about taking your ideas and then saying, okay, so how can I really make this a reality? Oh, the one on this page kind of goes with the one on this page. And maybe I could combine both of those ideas and then really make it happen. So I do believe that anything is possible. But again, it's not just going to fall in your lap. You need to move it forward in a way that makes sense for you.
That is so true. And as you were saying that, I was reaching for my own ideas book, the Bubbles Beyond Borders 2022. And that was the ideas for all of that. And I believe very much in that as well, except my ideas book is obviously not as neat as yours. We both know that. But
I will tell you, this may surprise you, Hasina, because I do tend to be like a person that believes in organization and all that structure. This is a wreck, but it's not a wreck for me. Like you would look at it and say, that cannot be Phyl Macomber's. Like look. yeah, the cross outs and, you know, I might have spelling errors and this is over here or whatever, but I'm the one that has to make sense of it because as we know, note taking only needs to make sense to you because they're your notes, right? So you need to be uniquely you, Hasina.
That's true. And I know, and Phil, I've got to thank you for being here because I know that you have to get to an appointment. And it's just so amazing that you drove all the way across town to get to Rob's office to be able to do this and then get to your appointment. So we so appreciate it. So what I'd like to do, I know we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left. If anyone would like to comment or ask Phil any questions or anything like that, we're opening the floor right now. So anything that you would like to ask, 2 minutes. Any takers?
And trust me, I'd much rather be here with you than go to my dentist appointment.
I didn't have any questions, but I want to say hi, Phil.
Well, Danielle, it was so nice to see you log on. It's so wonderful to see
Gosh,
you.
I was so happy when I saw you. I was like, that's my lady. Okay, that's my mentor. Thank you.
And that means a great deal to me, Danielle. I think we should set up a Zoom soon.
Yes, please. I really want to speak to you. I'm missing you. I love your energy. I loved your story about Chico. I think his name is Chico. Yeah, I love the story about Chico. And because I also have that same idea of you as just to be that beacon of hope and then carry it on and pass it down the line. So thank you for that. I really enjoyed your speech, Phil. I did. It's so lovely to see you. I'm so happy I saw you today.
Oh, me too. Me too. It put a smile on my face when I saw you log in. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Carry that smile, okay? Even after the dentist, carry that smile. Tell him you got
Thank
that smile all the way from South Africa. Okay, you got that smile all the way from South Africa.
I'm trying to embrace the appointment. Yes.
Okay, Phil. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Message me.
Yes. Bye.
Oh, that was wonderful. Love Danny's energy.
And talk about a person that puts doubt aside and focuses on the ripple effect of being positive. Danielle's Facebook post always put a smile on my face, and it means that she refers to me as her mentor. But I also look up to her, way up.
Thank you,
She's
Phil.
a young person making a difference. She really is.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
One more quick question, comment. Anyone want to unmute and say something or raise your hand or even type into the chat? Feel free. Okay. Okay. Well, Phil, I guess we will let you leave and go to your dentist appointment. And I think we can all join in sending you good energy, really good energy.
Thank you so much. And it's a true pleasure to be a part of this event. And I look forward to more events happening with Leave No Girl Behind.
Oh, thank you so much, Phil. And yeah, it's
Thank you. My pleasure. Okay, have a successful event.
Thank you. Bye.
Before you leave, I just want you to know that you just changed my day in full disclosure.
Oh,
This is some of my notes, but you just added all kinds of beautiful glory and chaos.
thank you, Tom. It's always such a pleasure to share space with you and learn from you. I wish I could stay for your talk, but it will be recorded, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good day.
Happy teeth.